Well, hello and welcome back. I am Chaps. I'm here again with Mike, and this is the F1000 podcast where we bet $1,000 on every Grand Prix. This week, we're in Texas. Okay, Mike, Texas. Here we are. Yeehaw! I got so excited in the in the track vid this week.
I could tell. Yeah.
I love this track, man. Triple header, back to back. I love these three circuits. Now the qualifying grid it's a little messy, Mike. It's a little messy.
I mean, that's good because I think that allows us to maybe get a little bit of value. And I think so in addition to the grid being a little bit mixed up because of what happened in qualifying, I think that you've also got a circuit that might lend itself to narrowing the gap between those top four teams in some ways. Like we've seen, especially with the last couple of tracks, I'm thinking specifically like Japan, Qatar, high
Hmm.
speed. We knew that it was going to gravitate more toward McLaren and Mercedes. Obviously, Red Bull was going to look good. The slow speed nature of some of the sectors in at the Circuit of Americas kind of brings Ferrari back into the mix too. So you kind of it looks like there's going to be maybe a bit of a three-way battle for like a place behind Max. I would assume. I'm still thinking even with Max starting at six, this is just going to be his race to lose, obviously, as it normally is every week.
Yeah, so let's talk about Red Bull and Max. I mean, again, Checo's probably irrelevant. Starts in ninth. Max had the pace. I mean, he put the car around the track in a time that was fast enough to be on pole. Of course, he cheated and went a little wide, marginally wide on turn 19. But on race pace, I guess where I'm coming from is this isn't Max Verstappen struggling on pace like he did in Singapore. This
No.
was a track limits. He was the fastest car, but then he got his lap deleted, and the lap that ended up counting, well, he had Checo sitting his fat butt on the final corner, ruining all his aerodynamics. So, yeah, Max probably wins this race, Mike, at a sixth. Like he probably does, right?
So, so we have to address the elephant in the room, which is, and I don't know if you've been reading at all about the changes that Red Bulls had to make to the ride height of the car. So Singapore was an aberration because of the nature of the track, because of the bumpiness of the circuit, and this has been talked about a lot. It was going into the weekend. Over the three practice sessions, Red Bull was really, really struggling with finding a ride height that they could run the car at
Hmm.
where they weren't losing a ton of performance, right? And that's the ingenuity and the brilliance of the Red Bull is that stable aero platform that can be run at different ride heights. However, the higher, just in general, you have to run the ground effect cars, the more performance that you lose. And the Red Bull is probably the car that most derives its downforce from its floor. Like that seems to be, in terms of if you're contrasting it with different designs across the board, it's the Red Bull that does that the most. The nature of Circuit of the Americas is that it's a bumpy circuit, right? And
Hmm.
that's, you heard the drivers talking about that a little bit this week. And because of that, everybody's ride height has had to come up, including the Red Bull. Theoretically, that's going to cause it to lose more downforce in comparison to the McLarens, in comparison to Ferrari and to Mercedes. So it's just like I think Red Bull is still like based on qualifying performance, based on the optimum lap time. It looks like Max should have still been on pole,
Hmm.
and we know that in race pace they're much superior to their qualifying pace. However, I would caution that I don't think it's going to be the max dominance that we saw at some of the higher speed circuits and the smoother circuits. Like I don't think it's going to be a Japanese Grand Prix result. I mean, Qatar, he would have annihilated everybody if they didn't have the fixed stint lengths. So
Yes,
that's just
yeah,
my
yes
point.
and
That's my
no.
point.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Uh, I also think the grid is collapsing on itself where McLaren and Mercedes brought new floors for both cars this weekend. I think the
Yep.
other teams are still battling it out for that P2 position in the constructors. Whereas, like, I actually don't know. I don't think Red Bull brought any upgrades this week. I think Red
No.
Bull said, "Hey, 3 weeks ago we have the fastest car. You guys are all a second slower than us. We're going to start developing next year, and maybe our 30-second winning margin is going to end up at 2 seconds by the end of the year, but we don't care." So
Yeah.
I don't think to your point, like I don't think the 30-second winning margins for Max are going to happen anymore simply because other teams continue to upgrade their car and he's not and Red Bull's not.
I mean, I think for sure that's going to play into part of that over the last three races or so. And I guess my point that I'm making is not so much that so Max, I think Max winning margin, not that we're going to jump into winning
No.
margin conversations already, but Max winning margin is so he's susceptible in some ways that he in a way that he wasn't earlier in the year. I guess really my point is, and you kind of led off the show by just glossing over the fact that Checo's in ninth and he's not relevant. Like I actually agree with you, but I agree with you because I agree with you because he's in a terrible run of form. This is a front limited track, and I don't think he's going to have the performance delta that they've had over the course of the season to
Right.
prop him up,
Right.
right?
To bring him
So
to
I actually agree.
fourth. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to just finish in second like a 1-2 like we've seen at some of the other mixed tracks in terms of corner speeds, right? Like
Right.
again, one of the really great advantages of the Red Bull of deriving most of your peak downforce from your floor is that you have the best performance across all ranges of corners, right? Like we know
Hmm.
that each of the other three constructors at the top of the standings, they have a corner spread that they perform better in just based on how their car's set up. We know Ferrari does better in the slow speed. They do better on the straights. We know that McLaren and Mercedes are good in the high speed.
Hmm.
Aston Martin was good in the slow speed and the medium speed, and they've kind of
Holy
fallen
shit.
off, right? Right? Big deltas now. But Red Bull, because of how they've set up their floor, the stability of that aero platform, like they've always been on these tracks when you show up like at a Spa, for example, right? Where you've got a mixture, and this is kind of like it's not a perfect comparison between the Circuit of the Americas and Spa, obviously, but you've just got three different sectors that have straights, they've got slow speed stuff, they've got high speed stuff,
Hmm.
right? You've
It's
kind
just
of
a
got
good
this
mix.
big mix, right?
I mean, they designed this track by copying other tracks around the world. So they took a
Exactly.
mix. Yeah.
100%, right? And we saw this is obviously earlier in the year before the other cars are developing and closing that gap. But we saw the dominance, the pure dominance at Spa on the same tire range that we're going to see here, C2 to C4,
Hmm.
right? So sometimes you could. I was looking at it originally before doing some of my like really in-depth analysis, thinking, are we going to see a result like Spa? Should I be looking at Checo if he doesn't qualify well for him to come up through the order? But because of the bumpiness of the track, because of his recent run of form, like we talked about, like I'm
And
not sold on that.
his machine doesn't have the inherent advantage that it did back in Spa. However, Mike,
No,
I think Spa is a very interesting comparison, and also I think Japan, obviously, because the S's in Sector One are so similar. And in
yeah,
both of those cases, at the time, we were undervaluing Ferrari and their race pace and their tire management, specifically Spa. We were
yeah,
very much against Ferrari and Spa, and that was the first week that I can recall this year where they didn't lose the race because of tire degradation in comparison to
no,
Mercedes, and I mean McLaren had a terrible day. So my instinct, when we've been doing the show, okay, I see Charles Leclerc on pole. Well, Ferrari sets up for qualifying pace, but then they struggle in race pace compared to the McLaren or the Mercedes. I When we're talking high level teams, I'm not sure that that's a no brainer with Ferrari anymore. I half expect when in Japan, Ferrari kept the Mercs in front of them and didn't lose their tires.
yeah. Man, I'm really having. So I guess this is an interesting lead into maybe talking about the teams and the bets themselves. I'm having a tough time placing Ferrari because
Hmm.
so Leclerc is on pole because so it's easy to look at Leclerc being on pole and think, well, there's a lot of low speed stuff on this track. They are the fastest on the straights. So they have a car that inherently should do well here. Leclerc loves this track too. He's talked about it all week.
Ferrari was on
Um,
pole here last year
Ferrari was on pole here last year, right? So this is a Ferrari track you could say in some ways too.
somehow. Yeah.
And yeah, and but then you really look into some of the data and it's like, okay, well, you mentioned it before. If Mercedes and Red Bull had put together their optimum sector times in qualifying, then Leclerc's not on pole. Simple as that.
He's not, but it was thousandths
Yeah,
behind
he's not on
Max.
pole.
No, but
Right.
it wasn't it wasn't two tenths, it wasn't eight tenths, it was thousandths. Like
Yeah. But
at
also
that point, it's a
knowing,
bump the right way or
yeah,
wrong way.
also knowing that Red Bull sorry, also knowing that Ferrari, so this is where it gets kind of confusing, is that so Red Bull and Mercedes generally the race pace comes there's a not a equal balance between qualifying pace and race pace, and we know that Ferrari is generally in the opposite direction.
Hmm.
So if they're almost all on par in qualifying, then are we looking at like a significant advantage for both Mercedes and Red Bull in race trim? McLaren is tougher to kind of peg down at this point because you had Lando talking pretty well all week that, and we know that they don't generally do all that well in the slow speed stuff. But man, like I don't know what they did to the car, but it's not it's fast, like in a straight line. It's
Well,
really
it
fast in a
was
straight line.
its straight line was the defense against Lewis all the way back to
Yeah,
Silverstone.
I know, which
But
is
you're right. I mean,
really
Zach Brown,
hard.
even in the post qualifying, he said, "Look, like we're surprised. We didn't expect to be good here this week."
And I think like Piastri being in 10 is maybe symptomatic of that, right? Like his
I couldn't figure out what happened to him. They didn't show him. I watched
yeah.
the post qualifying. They didn't comment on it. Like, what did he get track limits or was he just 10th on pace? Like
I
he's
think
last in
he
Q3. They didn't even show him.
I think he was just 10th on pace, right? So one lap pace and it's not weird. Like the car is not it's not a perfect car at this point. They haven't really figured out all of the slow speed stuff,
Right.
right? So it makes total sense that they wouldn't. Lando being in 2 is more confusing than Oscar being in 10th, I think.
Oh, for
And is
sure.
that just Lando? Lando is like that could just be like one lap brilliance by Lando putting him in. And again, he theoretically should be in grid slot 4, right? And if he's starting in 4th and Piastri's in 10th, then maybe you go, okay, that seems more in line with where they show up. It seems like McLaren on balance between qualifying pace and race pace is the most similar. You know what I
To
mean?
Red Bull.
No,
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
like
Like actually
maybe like
showing the pace. Right.
to performance, like perhaps like I
Yeah,
bet you
that's
they
fair.
probably finish in very similar grid spots. Like their finishing spots are similar to their starting spots, just because of how the car's balance is set up. It
That's
seems
fair.
like at this point, like if you want to characterize as Red Bull as better on race pace than qualifying. Mercedes is better on race pace than qualifying. Ferrari better in qualifying than race. McLaren is maybe the best balance of both of them, which
Hmm.
probably is really how you want your car set up in a lot of ways, right? So I'm having a tough time. I'm having a tough time pegging. This is going to be an interesting race. That's kind of what I'm teeing all
It's
this
going to
up to.
be
Is
interesting, and we have
like
team matches here. Like we
I
didn't have
know.
them
Well, I
last
haven't
week.
even,
We do
buddy.
have them.
I haven't even dived into it because I don't actually know.
I mean, I can tell
I
you
don't even
where
know. Yeah. What do
I
you
can tell
like?
you.
What do you
Well,
like? What do
I'll
you
tell
see?
you.
What do you like?
I'll tell you where Vegas sees it.
Yeah.
They're fading Ferrari hard with all the lines. They've got like Max, Lando, Lewis is the most likely podium based on odds.
Right.
Um, all the team matchups are plus money if you want to be on the Ferrari side. Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren are all minus money matching up against Ferrari. And that's kind of where I wanted to. I was curious what you felt because, yes, on the third race this season, those all make sense. Ferrari qualifies fast and then their tires fall off and they look good on Saturdays. But I don't know when we look back at Japan and all the way back to Spa, I don't think the Ferrari's tires fall off the way that they used to. For the book just to say, hey, there's two Ferraris up there and they're definitely going to be behind one McLaren and one Mercedes that's up there. I don't know.
Okay. Let's look at a different angle on this because you're talking about tires not mattering, which I completely agree with you. And man, we talked about this week about Dag and Ware. We were like having that
Oh, here we
conversation, right?
go.
No, but I'm just saying though. So like, it's going to be super hot. Like we know that it's hotter than normal in Austin,
What did they? Oh, they made
and
a comment about the weather changing tomorrow. Is it hotter? I think they said
I think it's
hotter
just going to
tomorrow.
be a little bit windier. I think it's going to be a little
Windier.
bit
That
windier.
was
Which
you're right.
which
That was the
okay.
comment.
So like, let maybe hear me out too because that also plays a little bit into this analysis.
I'd say that
It's
hurts
going to be a little
Ferrari
windier. I would say that hurts. I mean, it hurts all the cars because they're all ground
and
effect cars,
Williams.
but it hurts Ferrari and Williams probably the most because we've seen them have struggle with
Hmm.
wind. Thermal Dag. So it's not like I wouldn't call this track a tire eater from like a wear perspective because
Sector one's pretty hard. If you get
it is
off your line
from
at
stress.
all, now
No, no,
now
you're
you're
right.
just killing tires to stay on the
That's
track.
it's a really good point. 100%. We that's Max. Like he loses. he has a limits violation because he had to push too hard through
Yeah.
sector 1.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're 100% right. So yeah, like it does have some of those characteristics that we saw in Suzuka because of the S's for sure. I'm thinking though that's something that you can control by managing your pace through the first sector.
Hmm.
Thermal deg you can't control.
If
And
it's just hot
this
in Texas.
this is Ferrari going to suffer more. This is where we go back to Singapore and I'm struggling to understand like both Carlos and Lando to a lesser degree were like we're losing our tires. That might have just been symptomatic of the race in general. Like maybe the thermal deg might just be like uniform impact on the tire performance, maybe.
Right.
And that's not something that you can change between the cars. Maybe it's enhanced slightly because of
Like
how
your
your
front
car is
wing
set
can
up
get a
and
little
your
more
cooling.
cooling. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe it's like there's a not a is the Ferrari worse at cooling than I don't know. Like I don't know if I can even think of a data point that would help support that concept, but I'm trying to figure out why we wouldn't lean into Ferrari and extract the value there. I don't want us to get stuck. Because I listen, let me go back and look.
Here's a
I mean, I
reason why
like
we
plus
might.
money for the guy on pole. Like
They're
that's
plus money in all those matchups.
I know.
Here's why I might not like them. I'm not saying no, but let's explore.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate. Mercedes brought a new floor this week.
Yeah.
It seems to be working for Lewis. Lewis
Agree.
also, I wish that it was open, like there was just a website that said tire allocation, what's left. But Lewis consistently through qualifying was using used tires, where they said in Q1 George used two fresh and Lewis I think used two used. So does Lewis have extra sets? Like I wish there
He
was
definitely
a website that said, "Hey, Lewis has extra two soft fresh tires."
man, well, I don't think the soft matters. Like I don't it's not the
You think
softs
this
that
is a
matter.
medium hard race?
It looks like it's going to be a medium hard race based on, and I think that's a result of the weather pattern. Like the thermal deg is high enough that you can't get it out of the
Uh,
softs. So the soft they're going to use the softs are going to be the sprint tire anyway. The shootout tire, they're going to use the
yeah,
shootout
but I
obviously.
think
Then
they
they're going to use
limit. I think Saturday gets its own tire allocation. Like you don't dip
it
into the
does.
sprint for the other ones. I
Oh,
don't
that's
think.
a good point. You're right. Yeah, yeah. No, no, you're right. We should we you're right.
Well, they keep
Yeah,
changing the rules on us. I don't know. It's tough to keep up for
that is
everyone.
true. It is hard to keep up. You're right.
Or did they not have to
Um,
use the hards in Q1 this week? Oh, sorry. They changed the rules back. Oh, wait. Is that the sprint shootout that they're going to do that? That's probably the
oh,
sprint
fuck, I
shootout.
can't. I think it's a sprint shootout. I can't even
Yeah.
remember. And George went through a bunch of tires in qualifying. You're right though. Like he went through
Because he struggled. He
like
kept using new
four.
sets.
He went through like four sets of tires.
So I don't like. We're on teams. Maybe we don't have to pick a matchup, but let me throw something out there just for the sake of throwing a line into this betting show.
Yeah, we should do that.
Basically, all of the teams that have a chance at the top six from a both cars perspective. Now, take a breath, Mike.
Yeah,
This is a both cars,
whatever.
but they're all between minus 110 and minus 188. Now I'm jumping. I've been through the book. I didn't see a lot of value. Like Max is minus 400 to be on the podium. Like, of course that probably happens, but he is starting in sixth with teams that have upgrades in front of him.
Yeah.
So I'm interested at maybe like do we pick one of these teams to have both of their cars in the top six? And it probably comes down to one of two teams, Ferrari or Mercedes, because they're the two that have them starting there. But for something that's longer than minus 200, like let's call a spade a spade. Alpines are not getting in there.
No. And the plus 1800
And
line
I don't think
suggests
Checo
they
gets
aren't.
and I don't think Checo gets in there. So maybe
Well,
Piastri does.
no, no, no. Like, this is what's hard is that like Checo could easily get a top six grid spot. Like he's going from nine.
I don't see
Like
it, man,
that's
unless there's
both.
a crash. I don't see Checo driving through the Ferraris these days.
So you think he's gonna get just trapped in seventh?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's possible.
He
I
might
guess
get
the
trapped in
problem is
eighth
like,
if Oscar gets him.
yeah, that's possible too. Actually, you're not wrong.
Like this isn't Checo's not flying past on DRS past a Ferrari anymore. The car doesn't have that pace, and he's not in form.
No, that's going to be you're right. That's going to be so the overtaking opportunities are 1 and 12, really, right? Like you got
Turn
the
one, turn 12 is the hairpin coming out of sector one.
yeah, because it's that's the DR that's the end of the
Into the
DRS zones,
DRS. I think that's
right?
an interesting one too, where the DRS activation line is before
Yeah.
the braking zone, so you can
Yes.
technically
Let
you
me
can
look at it
brake
again. I
late
think
and
you're
then
right
get
though.
the inside and then fly away with DRS after you make the
Look at
pass.
yeah, because and this is where I'm like, I do like Ferrari. Like if you need to defend going in, so it's not even like the opportunity to overtake because you get Leclerc on pole and Sainz on fourth. But so if you've got the top straight line speed, they looked good. Lewis looked really good. So I'm having a tough time reconciling all this data.
George is the one I like. Do we want to be on George to not crash?
Do we want to be
I
on George
feel
in that
very
crash?
comfortable with both of these Ferraris finishing this race in the top six, unless they crash. But we don't bet. We
Man,
can't bet around crashes.
you know what I'll tell you? Here's what I'll tell you. I don't. I'm not sold on Carlos Sainz right now, and I'm only saying that because, we kind of talked about this in the Qatar analysis, but the car. So the floor that they introduced in Suzuka brought back I'll call it. It's not really peakiness. It's the pointiness, I guess, of the car. Right? It dialed in more oversteer to the car, and you've kind of seen Leclerc start to. Okay, what's
I
that
don't know. I
matchup?
mean, I was going to let you make that statement. I don't feel that Leclerc is in better form than Carlos. I'd say it feels the opposite to me. Carlos is the one that had back-to-back poles. He won a race.
No. But okay, so let's
You're
look at
saying since then, but
from Japan. From no. Yeah, I know. Like
for the
after the
last
break is
one race.
well, Japan and Qatar. What do you mean? So Sainz didn't race. What do you mean in Qatar? He didn't have an opportunity, and he
Yeah.
didn't look. He didn't look good in qualifying. He looked like he was completely lost. Now that was weird because like they ran his car too low in FP1 in
This is
Qatar, and
acceptable. Yeah. This is
then
an
they had to that.
outrageous this is an outrageous stance. He didn't
This is an
race,
outrageous
so
stance.
Leclerc's in better form.
Okay, well he qualified what
But go
fucking
one
12. What do
one
you mean?
race before that and he won. And he was on back to back poles. Like I think Carlos is the Ferrari driver that's in form right now.
I think you're 100% wrong. And actually, so I'm going to go as far as to say I don't want to take a top six Ferrari because I don't think Carlos Sainz is the driver that we need
Wow.
keeping that top six grid position. Man,
Okay.
honestly, maybe he looks really good. I have no problem with that. But I have a legitimate concern that so with Max behind him, and then the possibility that
George.
maybe, yeah,
I
with
mean
George
George
and yeah,
crashes him out, probably.
yeah, George does probably crash him out, but like I think George and Max get him, and then he's just trying to hang on to six. It's possible that Oscar or Checo get him. That's my concern, legitimately. So I don't like. No, I'm
Okay.
not into a top six
All right.
for.
We gotta see
It is
things
what
the
it
same
is.
way.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm a little bit concerned. Man, it's hard. It's really hard, but
Merck has
like because
the Merck has the longest odds in this. Ferrari's third. Ferrari's
I
minus
like
180.
Merc. Man, I like the Mercedes.
And
Man, they looked.
I have to catch myself because the only reason I don't like Mercedes is it's a bet involving George and then he's going to crash into Signs in turn one. But like we can't we got to move away from that.
I know, and well, I mean, he's going to do it. Like if we bet on Mercedes, he is going to crash, and you just have to accept the
But
fact
they
that
have the new floors.
there's
They've
nothing we can
looked
do.
good. Their tires are going to come to them. Like if they're going to come to any team, they're going to come to Mercedes.
Yeah, I like the fact that Lewis was the quickest in sector two, which, if you think about how, I mean, it's set up, you've got like the fact that they're carrying probably the most speed through sector two and making up the most time.
Because that's where the straight is.
My biggest concern is that they would lose out going into turn 12, but if they're the fastest through sector two, they're not going to, maybe they gain
Well,
going into
they're
turn
probably the
12.
team that's best suited to hang on through Sector 1, through all those S's, to be in a
Yeah, so
position to take
if you want
advantage
to,
of the DRS.
yeah, well, my point would be like if you can play a Mercedes bet that's a little bit more conservative, which is like like both cars in the top six. Is that both cars top six? What were they?
Minus 188.
Was they like they actually have the shortest odds, but
That's
I
what I
like
mean.
that.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like I like that there's an acknowledgement bump from the bookmakers that because I mean minus 188 is still superb value
Well,
for both cars in the
I
top
told you 10
six.
minutes ago, the book is saying Ferrari does not hold on to anything that they've just shown.
Yeah. Now the only question is, are we concerned about George's tire allocation? Like, man, look at does Albert have anything up on tire allocation? Sometimes he does. Can you take a look?
I'm on it.
He might tell you. He might tell you how many sets that they have.
Does he sometimes do that? That'd be amazing.
I've seen him do it, man. I think it's also like it has to be posted somewhere by.
I've tried Googling. I didn't look too hard this week. I've tried Googling on other races, and it wasn't very easy to find.
It's not even immediately obvious. I know what you mean.
You think it would just be on the F1 website? Like, here's the tires that everyone has left. No, I'm into upgrades. There's nothing on tires.
Buddy, this is such a like what a hard weekend. I love it. It's actually really cool because
Yeah.
it's obvious it's being reflected in the book for sure because this is one of the first times where you look at the odds and you're like usually you've got 200s to 300s like minus 200s to 300s across the board,
Hmm.
but because of how tight this race is likely going to be tomorrow, like maybe you're right, and I normally, I'm not a two car bet guy, but maybe it's you're not looking for anybody to beat anybody. You're just looking for you're trying to play a more conservative game in what you're taking.
Let
And
me
if it's like teams holding positions, like I'm okay with that. I like
let me
that approach
simplify where I'm
actually.
coming from. We get to Q3
Yeah,
today. There's 5 constructors that have 2 cars in Q3. So
yeah,
hey, we've got stability. We've got our top half of the grid. Now let's
yeah.
chop out 2 of them because I'm not betting on the Alpine. The Alpine fucking suck. But what's good there is Alonso's not sticking his nose in, holding on to fifth,
No,
getting in the way. Like Alonso's out of it. So when I'm coming into this, we've got 4 teams that are going to be in the top 8. So how can we just say they're all going to be up there? Like maybe 2 of them are in the 6 instead of capturing the 8. Like we could go top 10 odds, but I think we're going to lose a lot of value if we just look at top 10s for both cars. But that's where I'm coming from. We've got 8 cars on 4 teams that are going to be in the top 8. So let's just bet on that somehow. We don't have. I'm less concerned if Merck beats Ferrari or Lando holds on to Lewis. Or does that make sense?
it 100% makes sense. The minus 225 for McLaren to finish in the points is interesting too. I think
Both
we have to keep
cars.
that.
That's interesting. That's not
Yeah,
that.
if we're gonna
That's not that long or that short. I mean,
no, I mean like
we say them both every week.
Oscar to live in 10.
It's just who takes him
My
out. He gets the Alpines. No one's knocking him out of 10th.
no,
Joe?
nobody's knocking. No,
No.
Yuki, like no. I mean, that's not happening. Obviously, I don't like
Fernando would be
I
the guy that if Fernando was up there, it's like, okay, we've got one driver too many musical chairs. And then you're like, oh,
yeah.
Oscar is the guy starting in 10th, so maybe he gets unlucky.
I would say ironically the minus 188 for top 6 for Mercedes I actually like more. Not that I think that Oscar is at any risk. Like obviously you think okay,
I like
more
them
grid
both.
positions you're going to take the I like them both too. I don't love taking multiple two car bets obviously because chaos usually doesn't lend itself well. Like if you're going to go I my theory is no two car bets on the street tracks, you know I hate it.
Yep.
And if you're going to take a two car bet on a conventional track, just take one because and not that you can't plan for chaos, like I get that, but you're just taking on more risk than you need to. You could probably find a similar
Hmm.
line somewhere else. Like if we like a minus 225, let's go look for another minus 225.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Dude,
That's my point.
I
Yeah,
love you and I respect your
yeah,
opinion. I
yeah.
don't share that
I know.
opinion
I know
as a
you don't.
black or white. Especially
I
in a
know.
week like I just said, we've got all these cars that are in the group. The only way to value them might be to have to take 2. And this isn't a
I'm not
street
saying
track.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no to it.
Where do
And
the
it
crashes happen here? Turn 1? There's so much runoff.
yeah, it is. There's a lot of runoff. You saw Oscar
This is a
fucking
track where Lewis
yeah.
and Max both go 20 feet wide on the corner instead of hitting each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. I mean that's a good point too.
I was there. I watched it.
Yeah, there's a low safety car probability actually. I think the last time I looked at it.
Well, the race that I was at in 21, the entire race came down to Max surprisingly dipping for an undercut into the pits, and then he came out, and that was the race. There was no pass on track. It was like, oh, Max went into the pits, no one expected, and he wins the race.
He wins a race. Just oh man, the least interesting way to win a race
At least
on
my seat
on
I looked
strategy. Yeah.
right into the pit entry, so I was like, whoa, Max went into the pits. We didn't expect
Oh
that.
my
I saw the
God.
only action, then sat in an Uber for 3 hours.
I mean, minus 200 for Red Bull to be the winning car is interesting. What is the most team points? Like we're still sticking on teams and
I do
finishing
have. We're
position here.
not in the weeds yet. We're still on teams, but I have a couple of like flyers
Okay,
in the
that's not
weeds.
okay. Okay, that I love that. That's fantastic.
I entered the show with a few things written down, and they're all at least plus 800 or longer. Those were the things that jumped out to me
What? Are you
in the
kidding me,
weeds. In the weeds.
buddy? All right.
And then I have a note
Um,
that says all the cars you would want in the top six are good odds. That was my note.
that is a good note though, and it's true. So, man, what about okay? What about let's just talk because we're talking teams. So
We're talking
look
teams.
at the look at the most team points spread. Like so, minus 110 is tough for Red Bull because we don't think Checo's really going to be enough of a. So hold on, what is it? If you go,
No, we
we
do
have
this
this
every
conversation
week.
every
Yeah.
fucking week. So 2-3
2-3
versus
wins over
one,
first.
2-3 wins over just one.
2-3 is 33 points.
Yeah,
One's
but
25.
1-6 though. 1-6 is a win, right?
So 25 to 33, you need 8 points. So that goes down to 18, 15, 12 is fourth, 10 is sixth. 1 and
Right.
6 beats 2 and 3.
1-6 beats 2-3. That's all you need to know. So we're like if there's not a 2-3, so Checo is going to get seventh. Like
So
if he
7th is
holds up
6
Piastri.
points. Let's say
Okay,
Max
so
wins.
okay, man, here, like Piastri's in it. He put himself in a tough spot.
No, I
He
don't like it.
what?
So
You don't want to
let's
have
say this.
anything to do
So
with Checo. You don't want to have anything to do with Checo,
Max
essentially.
wins. That's 25. Checo's 7th. So that's 31 total. A
Yeah.
2-4 Ferrari finish is more points.
Yeah, but that's what I'm thinking. Is like, is there
Or
a
no,
way
no, no.
to
Sorry. A 2-4 is less points. It's 30 to
less
31.
points?
So Red Bull still wins that.
Minus 110. Minus 110 for them to get the most points is interesting. I mean, I did just like talk
I don't love it.
extensively at the beginning of the show about my concerns with Checo in particular in the Red Bull. Not that I think Max is going to have any problem knifing
Hmm.
through the field. Okay.
I don't know that
I
that's a
don't know
huge guarantee.
what that Max is going to win
Knifes
the
through the
race.
field. No, no, he's going to win the
No, no,
race.
no.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know if he knifes through the field.
I actually agree with that too. I don't think he's sorry, I take it back. He's not going to knife through the field over the course of 30 or 40 laps maybe.
Yeah, he might get
That's
one
big
car
my
every
point.
2 laps or something.
Yeah. Okay. Most team points is kind of a shit show. I don't know if I can really find anything that I
This
like
grid
there.
is a shit
Minus
show.
it's I love it. I think it's
Oh,
fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah. So the most team points you that doesn't that is the antithesis of the type of bet that we really want to make. I say at this point. We're
Again,
talking
I go
about
back to we know all the teams are going to be up there. I don't know if we
yeah.
have to pick the order
Like
of.
let's not play I agree. Let's not play a matchup game. Let's play like use the grid positions at your disposal and I think
That's
a
what I'm
lot of
thinking.
those like two car bets are the way to okay. Um do we So we don't know we have no idea what's going to happen. I guess is like that what we're admitting is in that top 8 we don't know what the finishing order is going to be. Let's
No,
not try to pick it essentially. Like
I could
what
see
avoid picking it if
Lando.
you can.
I could see him holding off Lewis on the straight, like exactly Silverstone. Lewis would catch him in Maggots and Beckett's, and then Lando would just have the straight line speed to hold him off. I could see that all race. I could see Lewis in his brand new floor going and winning this race. I could see
Maybe.
Leclerc falling back. I could see signs coming through. I think they're all very even. Our pecking order is not as distinct as it once was a few weeks ago.
No, not at all. Okay, here.
You want to stay on teams, though.
Okay. If we're staying on teams, this is a bit of it's kind of getting into the weeds, but
Weeds. We gotta get. We should talk drivers before weeds.
yeah, let's talk drivers before.
Yeah, you want to
Okay.
go drivers?
Yeah, let's look at drivers here.
Like, is there anyone that we just want to take? I mean, this is
Like,
crazy, man. Max is minus 400 for the top two. Like, it probably happens, but
what about just those individual top 6 finishes? Is there anybody that is like interesting? Russell at -300. No, I don't think so. Yeah, those bets. There's not a lot of value generally. You
You
can't
have to
really
take both
extract a lot of
cars.
value.
You have to take
Yeah,
both cars. And I understand your concern with something going wrong, but there's so much, we've talked about this over and over. There's so much value if you can pick the reliable car where it's like they're one, it's not going to be like the Alpine's going to blow a gasket tomorrow. You're not going to bet on Alpine to have both cars,
yeah.
but the Merc's reliable, the McLaren's reliable.
I said, man, like another kind of secret fade. Not like I don't want to keep fading Ferrari because I don't. I think that they're going to be competitive, but they haven't like taken new components often this year. Not, and that's probably a testament to the fact that they've improved the reliability of their power unit. But
Yeah,
Carlos Sainz didn't start last week because of a reliability problem.
true.
And it's been a long time, right? And they had a fuel system issue, and that's something that could come up, I guess, in theory in any car. But that might be another reason to just like is are they due? Like
Maybe.
does past performance predict future performance in terms of reliability? And it's just like this is the week that it kind of sucks because it seems like there might be the most value available on Ferrari, but it might not be enough to really make a bet on them.
This would be a really relevant conversation next week in Mexico with the altitude. Like
Yeah.
I would guess that they'd probably bring new power units next
I
week.
think they just do. I think they just do it like everybody does it anyway, just as a preventative,
Hmm.
right? So,
So
kind of
then,
interestingly enough,
is this the last Grand Prix planned for all
maybe
these components?
it probably is. And is it like you've got high stress in terms of ambient temperature?
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting to think about, right? Like it might be a reason to just stay away from them because you can, like, I could see an ERS issue, a fucking some sort of like Leclerc on pole. It just seems like his car is going to blow up.
It does, but then
Right? Does it not
we
always
need
seem
to
that way?
remind ourselves that
I know you can't bet that way.
in recent races they've held on to those positions.
No, they can't. You can't bet that way. I agree. But it might be another like we're not. Oh man, it's hard. I don't think you. I think you avoid picking. Like we said, you avoid the matchup. Okay, what about internal matches? Like, what about race match bets between the two?
Within the
Is there anything
teammates,
there?
I took a peek. I didn't love, but like take your own peek.
Yeah.
I didn't love like it
It's
all
all
seemed
pretty
pretty
big. They're
straightforward.
all pretty
Like
big spreads. Like, yeah,
yeah, Max is going to beat Checo. Alonso's going to beat Stroll. They have
not
Leclerc over
really.
Signs, but you're not. You know, you just said you're not a big Signs guy right now.
No, that's well. He's on pole and
And then
Sainz is
like
on
I don't
foot.
want to
I
be on
mean,
the Alpines. They're always a toss up between the two teammates.
no, that's a nightmare.
Like George, yeah, should be ahead of George. I don't think you bet on it though, because something could happen.
Chaps, I'm not. I'm just throwing this out there. Like, is this one of the times where you kind of look for a bottom half of the grid bet? Like, is this the not? Don't say no because I know you're going to say no right away. But and I'm not looking at the race match bets and thinking I want to take Magnussen over Hulkenberg or something. But I'm saying like this might be the opportunity for us if we really start to dive in. Like, I'm going to look at the group betting. Will be interesting. I want to look at the group betting because that in a group 4 or a group 3 bet this might be the time where you
Hmm.
go, okay, I got to concede that the top 8 to 10 grid spots are going to be chalk, let's call it, or at
Hmm.
least they're going to be. Maybe we try to
Maybe
find
not the
some
orders
value
chalk,
out.
but the teams they're going to be up there.
Right. Yeah, not the order, but the teams. I mean, yeah.
I mean, take a look at the groups. I think you're going to be disappointed with how they've grouped them together.
This is just chaos, eh? Wow. Jesus Christ. Because like group 3 immediately is the group that I'm like, that's interesting, but like the fact that they've got Alonso in there at +1,000 is just a waste.
We'll see, and that's the only one where it's like, sure, take a flyer on Alonso, but I don't think I don't think they have the pace.
I mean, they don't have
And
the
what are you
pace.
going to do? They're even odds for both Alpines. So now you're just picking an Alpine,
That's horrible.
the one that holds onto its nose when they crash into each other. One of them hits the wall, and the other guy gets to crawl back to the pits and stay in the race
Yeah.
when they
Okay,
crash into
that's
each
the.
other.
Oh my God, that's absolutely
And
amazing.
then
Okay, so bottom,
group four are like
they got Joe and
there's
Bottas
such
on
a
even.
gap between where Albon starts and where the Alfa Romeo start. But again, you're 50-50. There's two teammates starting back to back to each other, and you're picking one of them. Like that's a coin toss bet.
Yeah, these are horrible. Never mind, I take it
They're
back.
horrible. Yeah,
Yeah, they are horrible.
I wanted you to come to that yourself, or like what's Leclerc to win the race? Plus 550 to win Group One. I know I'm taking us on a different
Yeah,
track.
no, we're not taking. I would like minus 120 for George Russell in Group Two. Like, can he hold off the second cars of all of the top constructors in the top 10 spots? Like,
I
can he
mean,
hold
I
off
maybe
Checo,
maybe I'll
Sainz, and
take a quick.
Piastri?
I'm gonna take a quick squat into the weeds. I'm not gonna jump in yet,
Yeah.
but like
Take a dip. Yeah, just take a
I don't
peek.
know.
You want to
Do
take
you,
a peek?
do you think Russell probably leads a lap of this race through the pit stops with his grid position and the fact that Lewis is ahead of him? Does George lead a lap? Not a specific lap, just any lap.
What about okay?
Oh,
Um,
this guy just throws out another bet on me. You don't even want to discuss?
can I? Can I? Can
All right, all right, fine. I'll jump out of the weeds. I'll save it.
I suggest? Can I suggest this then? Okay, so
Yeah,
you
suggest
brought up you
something.
brought up. Well, you brought me into the weeds, and I'm like, okay, that's like there are things that have to happen in order for that bet to hit. Okay, what about Ferrari to lead after lap one? We know that they get their tires into the operating window quickly, quicker than the Mercedes and the McLaren, right? Those are cars that generally have to get their
Leclerc's
tires up to temperature. Leclerc is on pole.
he's typically a good starter.
It's minus 163.
There's history here about P2 being the it's the dirty side, but I think P2 has won the race more often the past number of years. And we're
Is that
talking
a
about just leading the first lap, not winning the race.
Yeah, it's just like leading after lap one. Like, is the guy in first with a car that I okay? So if we had to characterize the cars, the top four cars, top four constructors, who has the best like first lap pace?
The Ferraris, they fire their
Ferrari.
tires up
You'd
well,
say Ferrari. We know that,
and he's got signs on the second row.
right? So you have like you get a chance that maybe Sainz comes through and he's the one who's leading after lap one.
He might be if
But
everyone else gets jumbled up on turn one and signs just
it's
through goes signs.
so here's my other point on it is like I think that Lando sucks at starting races.
Yeah, Piastri keeps passing him off the starts.
Yeah. So like my take is if the guy in second is Lando, like so that already mitigates some of the risk, I think.
Hmm.
And then Lewis is the guy in third, and
He's
Lewis
good at
is
starts.
he's good at starts, but he's in a Mercedes, which generally takes a little bit of time to get some temperature into their tires too.
And he knows that, so there's no reason for him to try to get it all
Yeah.
on the
We
first
just
corner.
we just went through this with having Max. Like we talked about all of this last week. We took Max to be leading after lap 10 because we're like, there's no risk that the Mercedes gets him off the line and he's gonna hold on. And it was like the easiest bet we've ever made. Is is just having two bullets essentially for a minus one. Like, it's kind of a hilarious bet, like leading after lap one. But in a race where there isn't a lot of value, where we're having a little bit of a harder time trying to find a reason to take a team
Hmm.
to do something, is this just kind of like an obvious bet? Like it's like I
I
would
don't,
take
I
it for
don't think this is the
five.
right mentality, but for some reason, the fact that it's over in a flash on lap one is a bit of a hesitation I'm having. I'm not sure why.
I don't think you need to. Well, did you have the same hesitation to make a bet like after
No,
10
because it's
laps?
10
Oh,
laps. No, because
oh,
you're
who
into it.
fucking
You're in. No, because
no, shut up.
you're
That's the
in the
stupidest thing
now.
ever.
You're in the
That's
group. Like this is like lights out and oh, your bet's settled already.
that doesn't make any sense. That's a horrible mentality. You know what?
I, I, what,
The only
dude, what did I
mentality that
say?
matters is winning.
What did I say
Winning.
before I even said it? I don't know if this is the wrong mentality, but
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is.
I'm
I'm
just
telling you,
sharing
it's
my
a wrong.
feelings with
It's
you.
the it's a wrong mentality. Don't bottle those up. Don't explain that to me. I don't want to hear it. Okay, suppress that feeling. We don't need to think like that. We need to think what is going to win. So the Ferrari leading after lap one could be that might be a bet that wins. I don't know.
And we'd rather keep getting too close to the mic. I'm sorry. I think would we
I think I am.
rather
I've been like screaming into the mic. I might have
would
to
we
go a little
rather
like this
be
because I kind
on
of lean
the
forward.
likely Ferrari or Lewis is right there and has a. I'm thinking Flyers already. Like I'm
Oh
liking
no,
long odds.
no,
No,
no, no!
you don't.
Don't
You
stay
wouldn't
off.
rather be like a.
You already told me that you came in with like a bunch of plus 800 flyers. Like you have a shit ton that we can choose from later on in the show.
No,
Like what?
you already just gave me a brick wall response when I threw out one of mine. So apparently I
Yeah, but
have
I don't.
nothing, even
No, but
deserving
because
response.
what's your okay? Fine, we'll talk about your stupid George Russell bet. Like, what do you? Why do you think that
Because
that?
he it always happens.
What are the odds of that? I don't even
Plus
look.
eight
You didn't
hundred.
even say.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, man,
You didn't even
stop. Why?
respond.
It's plus 800. Why are we talking about that now? We still need to make. We got to make some bets, man. What are you doing?
I got two bets written down.
Like a wig. And I'm right now. I'm like here. We're in the weeds because I'm looking at winning margin. Like fuck me.
Get out of the week. We haven't even talked like real drivers. Well, we
Okay,
kind of did. I don't know
noted.
where
Let's
I'm
look
going to
at.
put the.
Can we talk? Okay, can we talk about the podium? Can we look at combination podium finish at the
Yeah,
very least? Like, is there something there
I
that
am
is
gonna.
makes sense to us?
I am also just going to note Ferrari leading lap one. It's not a
Yeah.
star, but
Mm, to be honest, I mean, and if we can find some minus 163, if we can find something else that we like, I'll take it. But that's pretty good, pretty long odds. I feel like for a team on pole.
that fires their tires up well. And
Just
Max
that's a
isn't right there.
man. If they lose the like, if we lose, so this is we always have to go back to this. Like, if we lose the bet, like was our logic flawed? Like does Lando get his tires fired up really quickly? Like the McLaren's certainly better than the Mercedes, but not like the Ferraris. This is the whole we just talked about that scale that you've got on one side, like Ferrari is generally better in qualifying and has a car that's set up for qualifying one lap pace for these reasons because they get energy and heat into the tires, get them into a working window. We know McLaren is probably somewhere in the middle, but I honestly think that having Lando in that car holds you back in some ways.
I
He
agree.
even
If it
like
was
Lando
Oscar,
said,
Oscar's
maybe
a
I would
threat.
be. I actually agree. Lando said, like he's going to try to get the lead after lap one. I mean, obviously you're going to say that. Is he going to do it? How many times has he done it? Like I can't even think of a time. Chaps, I can exclusively
No,
think of
Oscar's
times that
done it.
we're on yeah. So we're on Lando quite a bit actually, and he just loses positions at the beginning of the. It's like oh well fuck like Lando's in seventh now. He started
Yeah,
in P2,
you're
and
not
now
wrong.
he's in P7, and he comes and then a lot of the times because McLaren's really figured out their shit, he comes through the field. Like think about the sprint. Think about the sprint at Qatar.
You're not
Guys
wrong, dude.
starting
Yeah.
like
Okay.
it just happened.
It's written down.
Okay.
It's
Well,
written
put a
down.
star. My point is, put a fucking star beside it.
There's nothing written down. So what's written down is like it's on the
Literally nothing
list
written.
so far.
Imagine you're just like actually there's nothing written down. You've just been fucking
No,
with
like
me the entire time. Yeah.
some weeks I have a page full of options and I need the stars. This is like
Okay.
I can see the bets are
Fine.
there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm looking at the combo podium.
Yeah, let's look at opponent. So you okay, combo
Fuck.
where you want to fade
This
it.
is hard. Yeah. I'm like I would rather fade.
Dude,
Usually I like the fade bets here, but
follow the odds. They're saying it's Max and Lando and Lewis.
I know. No, I know
The
why.
odds
And
are
I get
saying
why
that.
I get why they're saying it. It makes sense that they're saying it. It's those are they're fading Ferrari, which I don't have a reason to. I don't have a reason to say the book is wrong is my problem though, right? But what I so
No.
here's my point. I don't want to continue to go back onto Ferrari to lead after lap one, but so there's an inherent fade in Ferrari baked into the odds right now.
Uh-huh.
Every odd across the board, and that exists with this bet. Like they're fading Ferrari even to lead after lap one, even though they're on pole. Like if
Yeah,
it
we
was
like it because
Lewis
the
Hamilton,
line. If it was
yeah.
Max, it'd be minus 500.
Well, if it was Lewis Hamilton on pole, it would be minus 250.
Probably.
Like I'm just saying, right? Like
Probably. Yeah.
because there's a fade, an inherent fade on Ferrari baked into the odds already, you're getting more value there, which is ironic because, like we've talked about, we think that that car is set up to be good after over one lap, essentially.
Yeah.
This is like taking what you get type of thing. Like, is that the way that we came into the show thinking, man, Ferrari is they're kind of getting the short end of the stick here, which it realistically maybe they should because of how the race could play out. But this is a way to kind of capitalize on that to some degree.
It's written down. You felt the need to go off about it again. That's fine.
Shut up.
I'm
Is
gonna
there
do something
anything
crazy
here?
and literally watch the race start from last year. Is that
No,
is that
no,
crazy?
it's kind of a sick idea. Actually, I love that idea.
Because Ferrari was on pole, right?
Ferrari was on pole, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it was Sainz.
No signs. The signs was on pole, yeah.
Max led in turn one.
Max led in turn one. Did he?
Yeah, Max got a great start up the inside. He's ahead of. He's a car length ahead of Sainz before the braking zone,
What? Uh-oh.
and then Sainz got spun out by Russell. I should
Oh
not
my
watch
god!
this. Oh no, I should not watch this.
Where does Max? Sorry, where Max is coming from P2 and he gets
Me
ahead of
too.
him?
Yeah, but like just before the braking zone, he's ahead of him. He's a car length ahead,
Oh,
just straight up ahead of him.
yeah. Oh no.
And then Sainz panicked and turned it into Russell.
Now, okay, so that's in all fairness, that's Carlos Sainz on pole. Like that's
Yeah.
not Leclerc. That's
I
that's
shouldn't have
not
done that.
that's
That,
not
that means
that's,
nothing. It's not Max
it's
Verstappen's
irre-
not right there. I know.
it's irrelevant. It's not Leclerc. Like Leclerc is on pole. I would take Leclerc in P1 over Sainz in P1. Like this, they're just different guys. They operate, they drive differently, different driving
Question
styles.
for you:
He's not as aggressive. Yeah. What?
Has Leclerc ever converted a pole to a win? I'm not sure he has. Isn't that a thing where he, like all his wins are from P2? But Sainz did just convert a pole. I'm just
He's not.
saying.
We're not picking him to win the race though. Like, what do you mean? I'm not. That's not.
No,
I don't think.
I'm actively
I don't think he's going to
combating
win.
that you
Yeah.
think that Sainz is not in form.
I think he's not informed because the car is moving away from him. It
He
just moved
converted from
away.
pole 2 races ago.
I know.
3
It's
races
great.
ago.
3 races ago.
Yeah. Okay.
But and it was the weirdest race of all time, so it doesn't really matter. Like I'm glad he did what he did, which was amazing. He used his big brain. He
You know
got
what, Mike?
all of the applause
See
for
that?
it. He deserved
See,
it.
it's got a star. All right. I
Thanks,
put the
man.
star beside your fucking
Now,
Ferrari. and
now
you
I'll
love
stop.
it.
I'll stop bringing it up.
It's got a star. Do we see? We're in the weeds, and like now I'm just going flyers. Are we gonna pick a straight TriCast? No.
No,
That's
that's kind of
stupid.
insane. That would be an insane thing to do.
Winning
It
margin
is-
was all plus money. I mean,
I
is
saw
that
That's
is that worth talking about? That Max is
Mm.
far back. The last race out where he wasn't starting far back, he's still. Now we know it was the extra pit stop
Very-
that closed
yeah.
the gate. Well, kind of, dude. It was 6.8 seconds without that pit stop. The pit stop brought it under 6 for us, but he wasn't 30 seconds. It wasn't like, oh, the third pit stop killed a minute winning margin for him. He doesn't have 30 seconds on the grid anymore. And he's starting in 6th.
I don't know if that. Yeah, no. I understand where you're coming from. I don't even know. Oh, man, this is so hard. Like I don't even know. What you're just saying under
Like,
6 seconds.
so
is a good-
Mercedes brings a new floor this week. Is this a week where the odds haven't adjusted yet for the fact that Red Bull's done upgrading, everyone else is still upgrading, and that 30-second margin's not there? Like, is this, and now this is the turning point where next week
No. Well,
the
okay.
odds
So
are adjusted?
based on so here, he still has 3/10 on the field.
No, dude.
Yeah,
The lap
yeah,
that
he
he
does.
cheated, he was
no.
5 thousandths.
Yeah, in qualifying trim.
Sure.
Like this is the problem. I'm saying like he's gonna have 3/10 on the field in race form, in race pace. Like that's the difference here. So like you actually might like the value randomly might be he wins by more than 6 seconds. Like he still has a tremendous delta on like 3/10 is massive in racing. Like
Where are you
So it
getting
still
that number
exists.
from? I'm
2/10,
tempted to
3/10.
just accept it, but like where are you seeing that from? They don't do long run in FP1. Where
well,
are you getting these
there's
3/10
some
on the grid?
there's some that comes out of it. Lawrence Barretto wrote an article that had this is like on the F1 website where they
Yeah, but
like, they
Mercedes
piece
was
together.
doing FlowViz testing on their new floor. Like I don't know if any of that data to the pegging someone to the grid. I don't know if we got that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just curious.
It's
Like,
hard to
where's
like
that coming from?
what it looks well that's it looks similar. So I guess my point is it looks similar to the race pace data. So I've been like they do this every week. F1.com does like and it's not like you have to take it with a grain of salt obviously, but what I see is I see the same pattern that I've seen every week for the season except for in Singapore, which is the delta is slightly less than it usually is. Usually it was for a long time Ferrari was was the second in predicted race pace, but they had all these problems with tire management that kept them from really fitting into that slot behind Max all the time. And then now with McLaren and Mercedes developing the car well, they've kind of like they're on par with Ferrari in a lot of ways in terms of projected race pace. And like that always seems to match what these simulations show.
Hmm.
But the one thing that always stays the same is that Red Bull is the leader by 2 to 3 tenths. It's usually more than that. It's usually like 4 or 5 tenths. And that's what happens on Sunday is that they win by 30 seconds, a minute, or something like that. So my point is like we talked about all the so I have concerns, like I said, I have concerns with the ride height of the car affecting the overall level of downforce that the Red Bull can derive because of the bumpy nature of the circuit. But this isn't I guess my point is it's not like a Singapore level impact to
No,
the
no,
car.
no.
It's not. Because we would have seen they had 3 practice sessions again in Singapore to figure it out and they couldn't. Max almost got pole and the car
Checo
is not yeah.
Checo screwed him over.
Well, yeah, like exactly, right? So, like he maybe I fucking how are we always on winning margin? But
Here's the problem is I
what,
agree
what's
with you,
Max winning? What's Max
but
winning the race? Like, what do you even look
but it's
at
hard to
that?
pin, like you said, oh, it's over 6 seconds, but now we got to choose. Is it the window of 6 to 12 or is it over 12? I don't know if it's over 12, but that it's so hard to go in the window for me. I don't know why. That middle 6 to 12 feels like the toughest one to hit.
Yeah, you know what the dumbest thing ever is, and we're just kind of stupid for not looking at it. Like, I didn't even look at Max to win. It's minus 188, dude. I didn't even
Wait,
look at Max to
what?
win the race. I didn't look at him to win.
Just to win? No, I'm
Yeah,
seeing minus 300. You're. Oh wait, is that the
no.
sprint? Wait, that might be the sprint.
Make sure you're in the race, dude.
Oh, I think I looked at it at the sprint. I'm like, well, I'm not taking him at minus 300 from sixth place. Yeah, do we just say fuck it and we have this is the only time we bet on race winner?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know, like that's okay. What's is there not enhanced win? Like, isn't that like a yeah enhanced win only? So minus 175, you can get them at. I mean,
We might as well take the extra odds. Is there this is behind the show producer type thing, but like is that a bet 365 boosted odd that we should not take? No, we got to take the value if it's there, right?
obviously, man. Once I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
why they do
Stupid.
that. It
That's a
doesn't
stupid
make
question. That's a
it's the
stupid question.
stupidest thing. It's the stupidest thing that exists. I don't know what Bet365. Like I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why
It's
they
a
do
stupid
that, but
question.
it's like cents on the dollar. It doesn't really matter ultimately in the end. But yeah, like we take that obviously.
Okay, I think we have to take that, right?
Like
Right?
what? Okay, he is gonna win. He's gonna unless something happens to him, which is it's possible obviously, but like he will win the race in the
Because
end.
the only race he didn't win was Singapore, and this is not Singapore. He's
No, it's
not
so
back there because
there.
he's
Listen,
smaller.
there are there are like it's a similar problem, but like if that was a 10 out of 10 problem
Sure,
for them, this is a 3 out of 10 problem.
the
So
asphalt's
does it
bumpy.
yeah,
The
they have
it's
to
hot.
increase the ride they have to increase the
Yeah,
ride height of the car. Like it's
yeah.
fine. Like we know what happened, and they have to do the same thing here. But they so let's keep this in mind. So they had 1 practice session to figure it out. They did to some degree because he should have been on pole in qualifying, and and this is the pattern that we know exists. If Max is anywhere close to being on pole, that means his race pace is going to be fucking way better than everybody else, pretty
Right,
well, right?
right. And he has the pace. His pace is not sixth. His pace was pole by 5/1000ths. And dude, the margin that he went wide by. Quick side note: I was doing the track video. That corner fucking sucks. Like I had to
Yeah.
record my lap 10 times because they kept giving me track limits on that corner. I'm like, I didn't even. I'm not wide. It's stupid. Me and Max, just keep. Sometimes when you're that fast,
Just two
you just go a
two
little
peas in,
wide.
just 2 peas in a pod, eh?
Two
You and
peas in a
Max
pod.
Verstappen. You and Max Verstappen. Yeah, but buddy, that's what they say about you two.
I'm being mindful that we are an hour in, and I'm not sure we've kind of been in the weeds a
It's
little
like
bit.
it's kind of like it's hard. This is probably the hardest race that we've had to handicap this year, which is kind of again
Hmm.
kind of cool. But
Hmm. But let me say so. I've got four written down right now. Both
is
Mercs in
there
the top six, minus 188. Both McLarens in the top 10, minus 225. Ferrari to lead lap one, minus 163. and Max to win at -188.
Okay. I like that.
I like all four of those. The one I like the least is Ferrari lap one for no other reason than it's such a short, and I know that it's wrong. I'm an idiot, but like it's so quick. But that's a quick win. That could be a quick $200
I
first lap
like
of the
that's
race.
don't like if you have a real concern, like if you think Lando or Lewis is gonna get him, like if you
Okay,
just watched the
let me
video,
no,
yeah.
let me.
If you have
Okay,
a real concern, like what do you actually think is gonna
we
happen? If you
we've okay, and I think this is it. I think I found why I've uncovered what I'm feeling. We keep
okay,
betting on lead lap 10, and we love it. But a huge reason of that is it doesn't have to be in the first corner because it's always been Max. Max has the DRS straight line speed over 10 laps. He'll get that lead. This to me has a lot of coin toss. Anything can happen in corner one. Like when we were on Max to lead lap 10, we could have won that with him taking a quick 360 in corner one because by 10 laps later with DRS, he's going to go get that lead. Yes, it's very likely Charles just goes, takes corner one, and leads the first lap. But if anything does happen, corner one's the most likely corner in the entire 2 hour race for something to happen. And if it does, this bet's now in jeopardy. And we don't have the all of our knowledge and backup of Max with DRS and he's faster and the straight line speed and the Merc is draggy and the Mercs can't hold him off over. None of that's a factor in this one lap bet, and I think that's why I'm
then
struggling with it.
then don't take it. You have to take it off the board. That's fine. Like it's
That
listen,
makes
you
that
like
makes sense, right?
I can yeah, like that's a rational reason not to take it, and that's more circumstantial than it is. That's it could be anybody you're saying theoretically in grid position one, and you would be
Yes.
thinking you would have your own
Yeah.
reservations, and that's completely fine. Like that could be a reason why you don't like the prop in general, and
And I don't think we'd be
I
looking
can
at
respect
this
that.
if we hadn't won a couple of lead lap 10s. I don't think we ever be looking at lap one. We're coming in like, hey, we won a lap number. Let's see if we can find it in this. I don't think the
No. So
factors are all the same.
that's fair. Like that's your point. I agree with what you're saying. I didn't suggest it because we have been hitting on like lap wins, like lap number
Subconsciously, you
wins.
never know.
I I'm thinking no, I was looking for an opportunity to capitalize on what we know about Ferrari. And that's all it is.
Yeah,
And it doesn't and it's fair.
and I agree
And if
with
he yeah,
with your position and where you came from. I just if there's mayhem and we don't bet around mayhem, but the lap 10 bets we could have had mayhem and still won them. This one like you could George could just spin out Carlos and everyone goes spinning and then it's like Lando goes through and we lose. Like I don't I don't know.
okay. No, listen, you don't want to take it. So that's
No,
fine.
I
You
don't
have a
think I
real
do.
reason. Your reason not to take it is not I don't like the idea that it's over quickly. As long as that's not you have a real rational reason
No,
not to
I
take
think
it. I can
that
respect that. That's fine.
that comment was coming from we don't have the meat of it can still come back from something
Yeah, you
happening
just
early.
couldn't. You were trying to articulate what the issue was.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Took me
Okay,
a while to get there.
yeah,
But
that's
even
okay. I
three
can.
bets at -188, -225, and -188, like that's a decent. Does Max take the lead by lap five, Mike? We're in the weeds. We're in the weeds. I'm in the weeds now. Does he do it quick? All that mayhem in
No,
turn one?
no.
No.
Well, I think the point that we're making is that we think he's going to have a more difficult time going through the field because of the factors that we talked about. We think he's still going to win, like right.
Hmm.
We still think he's going to win, but we think it's going to be a slower climb than what we're probably used to seeing from him.
In a flyer capacity, because you don't know the line.
Yeah,
This is an uphill turn. I'm very focused on corner one, but I think if you go back, someone goes off in corner one every time they race here. The fact that it's
yeah,
uphill, it's a blind apex, it's a
yep.
wider entry than exit, so everyone starts wide and then they have to come into each other. Like if something happens, does Max get into two or three on the lap one, and does he lead by lap five? It's a
I
flyer.
mean,
Think of
it's
it as
entirely.
the flyer perspective. It's plus 1,000.
It's funny because you just brought that up. Like Max, okay, this is like fine. You want to get into the weeds? We'll get into the weeds. Max is like well, he's the best at everything, but he's like a V driver, right? Like he turns his car in and
Yes,
uses like optimum grip and
I know
acceleration
what you mean by
to
that.
go through a
Yeah,
corner. He's not a U. He doesn't
it's
corner.
not the
He'll
long wide
he can
apex. He's like
he
boom,
can
boom.
he can do that, obviously. Like of course he can if he needs to, right? But he tends to be a V driver. And turn one, like as you described it, because of how much happens going wide on the turn, leaves a bit more, you would think, on the inside for somebody who maybe is attacking it from a V perspective versus like a U perspective. So if you're naturally going into turn one and you're gonna try to take an inside line from a like grid spot six, and you're gonna attack it like a V and come out with great traction and grip and acceleration and speed, maybe it's not that bad a bet. It's also Max Verstappen in the best car. So like that's
And
also a good reason to take it.
he had pole pace.
And he had pole pace. Like it's not like, yeah, this is like you're gonna call everybody maybe on par for the first three laps because there's no DRS.
And there's no
Is
tire
he?
delta, but
Is
that's
he?
at
Yeah.
the end.
Is he just a good enough driver to be in P1 from like purely like racing everybody in
I don't
racecraft? Like,
know.
is he? Does he have enough racecraft to take P1 from P6? Yeah, like he does. Like Lewis Hamilton in P6 could do it in theory. He has the racecraft to do it.
Hmm.
I wouldn't think like a guy like Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. Like I'm not worried about those guys being in P1 after 5 laps, so that kind of adds a little bit of value. George Russell is fucked, so like he could be. He's kind of fucked. George Russell is a weird guy who's George is like he said it like a million times. He's hyper aggressive. Like that's how he just
Yeah.
drives that way. Right? It's part of the reason why he gets in so many really puts himself in so many really bad positions and ends up losing points, but it's also one of the reasons why he's as successful as he is and has been through his entire career. So like George Russell is like a more of a concern to me than anybody else, literally. In between Leclerc, well, Lewis Hamilton. I take back. Lewis Hamilton's
There's
probably the
some
biggest
concerns.
concern.
Well, here, okay,
Lewis Hamilton's the biggest concern.
so
He'd
I
be my
need to
biggest
correct
concern.
myself. The line for 1,000 was Red Bull to lead lap five. I don't. I think we just look at Max if we're going to
Yeah,
have this conversation. But
100%.
lap five is plus 1,200 for Max. Lap 10 is still plus 175. So it's not quite the flyer line, but it's still plus money. And I mean, now we've just doubled our time for him to go get the lead of the race. Or are we is this like we're double dipping on Max leading lap numbers and like I was saying
Yeah.
before.
I mean, like I think we are because like I'll just take him a minus 188 to or minus 175 to win the race, right? Like I mean,
Right.
we're talking a pretty minor swing
That's
in
where
value.
I'd say like $50 on if we were gonna go on him on a number, I'd rather go $50 on he does it quick. Or there's mayhem in corner one and he gets it quick than having to put like 200 or $300 on him by lap 10, which is a similar risk.
Yeah. Hmm.
We don't we like to have a flyer. Because I'm comfortable with the three that we have that are
I
minus
am
money.
too. I don't mind the like in a race like this, I don't mind having a flyer because it seems like there's so much that can happen
Hmm.
that it's not impossible for something like Max to be leading after lap five to happen.
And I like
Um,
that line is that's a long line. All of a sudden, a $50 flyer, which is not going to kill us if we lose it,
yeah. Like, is he
is
going to do
leading
that?
by.
Is he going like, he won't do it, but does it make sense to have a horse in that race for $50? Like maybe, yeah.
Does this implicitly half hedge the Mercs or McLarens? Like if Max, if one of the Mercs goes out, well, that's light in turn one. That's a lot more likely for Max to take positions and have a chance at leading.
I like that style of thinking too, right? And it's not like if Max goes out in turn one because he's trying to come through the field and we've got him at minus 175. Like it's not it's not like we're double dumping on him and we're losing extra. Like you lose another
No,
$50 because he comes out of the race.
$50.
Like it is what it is, right? And
But
you
the
just kind of take
potential
your
to win
lumps.
$600 15 minutes into the race. Well, it's a flyer. It's a flyer. Like I'm not sitting here
I,
thinking, yeah,
I look
Max is definitely going to be leading in lap
well.
five.
I've been looking for something of similar value that I could make an argument or a case for, like to allocate that $50 to. I don't know if I see anything. I mean, that's like it's a one car bet. I like that, especially with the Flyers. You don't want to try to make something happen with two cars and like that.
I mean, in maybe this is a direct hedge because it cannot win with the Max winning the race. But do you look at Max not having a good day and going Charles Lando in like a chalk podium,
No,
any
no,
order?
no, no. I don't like that.
No,
I don't like that. That's not how. That's not really how we approach.
no,
And
it's not.
I don't want. I don't want to change the approach. I like the ability to have everything stay in play. You
I
know what I
agree.
mean?
I agree. Yeah. We're in the weeds. We're looking for something. Winning nationality,
Yeah, kind of.
Brit.
British, like the British.
Are the Brits?
You always
Is it
get three
plus one?
guys. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
always get
know.
three guys, man. It's always kind of funny, right? But
There's three up
it
there.
just it just doesn't make sense though. That's a
No,
direct
because
fade on
Max is
Max
gonna
winning
win.
the race, and like he's gonna win.
This is the Grand Prix. Yeah. We don't want the TriCast.
Like,
Logan Sargent's definitely going to crash out of this race, right? At home. I didn't even
probably,
look
yeah.
at the line. Just we got to work that in. Oh fuck, my computer's going to die.
Hey, what? Your computer's gonna die. You gotta plug it in. Plug it in. Plug it in. Plug it in.
It can't be charged and use all the adapter for the gear.
How is that possible?
Covers the charging port. Technology,
Come
man.
on, that's no way. That's at that. There's no. It's how much battery life do you have left?
It's red.
It's
Give
red.
me a time. 10%. Keep an
Well,
eye
you
on it.
can't.
We were an
Don't
hour
lose
and
it.
15 minutes anyways, but like yeah, that's damn.
I'm still looking though, man. Like I gotta.
No, I know we don't want to rush it.
And like minus, like we didn't even. Okay, we didn't say this, but minus 120 for the Mercs to get Lando. Like
So
both. You
Mercedes versus
two
McLaren.
two two bullets in the chamber. Yeah, Mercedes versus McLaren. Like we didn't. I know we looked at it
I think
quickly,
we
and then it was just
started.
like,
I don't know. I don't know
yeah, okay,
who's
that's fine.
better.
That's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah,
two v
yeah.
one's nice,
It's a two.
but
It's just a 2v1 thing. Like that's kind of where I'm coming
what
from.
did they
But
do last? Oscar won from he would have beat both Mercs from 10th, right? Am I way off?
what do you mean?
Oscar was 10th last race, and then
Yeah,
was he on the podium?
but
No.
yeah, but Lewis and George ran into each other. I mean that doesn't
Yeah,
really count. Like,
yeah, they did.
and George, yeah, no, but that doesn't. So what
Yeah,
do you
they
think?
did.
The odds of that happening again are extremely low. I would say.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. They did. I'm just like Lando sucks at starts. Lewis gets him right away. I think then it's like pace versus pace. They're kind of the same. Like Lewis takes track position and then it's game over at that point. George, like that actually might be. Man, if Lando finishes this race in one of the top two spots, I will be impressed. Just with how
Mm-hmm.
bunched up the field should be. Like
Mm-hmm.
that would be that. I don't like. I think Lando Norris is a really great driver, but like when everybody's on par, he doesn't seem like he's so it's I mean like Max and Lewis are the guys. Leclerc can stick his nose in there if he's got a car that can make it happen. Lando's the guy who loses out to me. Like George is more of a threat than Lando is, I think, a lot of the times. George is very volatile. Like he's less volatile than Lando. Lando will bring the car home, but at the same time, because he lacks that killer instinct to really go for it,
Yeah.
he's the guy who loses out on the podium. Where's a fucking podium? Where's a fade? Give me back to like everybody's close. Everybody's tight. Like we're not. McLaren looked really good at the high speed tracks in Qatar and Japan. Maybe we're just overthinking it. They had a good day in qualifying, which is great. But in race pace, George, Lewis, Max, Leclerc, if he can hang on. Like there's four spots there. Lando is the guy who ends up getting bumped. Like I don't.
Hmm. We haven't seen much of the Mercs beating Lando when Lando gets to start ahead. We've seen a lot of Lando holding off the Mercs.
In
A
the
number of
last
races.
couple of so Singapore,
Silverstone. Singapore,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's that
the
you're.
sprint last week, and
Yep,
Qatar.
that. Yep. Is it like? Are you? I'm thinking like, is the gap narrowed enough? Because there was definitely a pace. I guess that's my point is there was definitely enough of a pace delta. Nah. Okay. All right.
Here's why I'm
I was going.
interested,
Yeah.
because this is the week that Merck just brought new floors, and there's only one practice session, so Vegas has not seen the full performance of this floor. It's a
Yeah.
shot in the dark almost for us, but is it, hey, the
You
lines
get ahead of
aren't
the curve.
respecting this
Yeah.
new floor yet, so let's just be on it this week, and then next week all the lines are going to say, well, Merck's clearly the second best car because they have this new floor that we just saw win a race. Not going to win a race. You were starting down the road, like fading Lando with a combo of anyone is just very minus money.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at that and I'm like, hmm.
Like, will Lando and Lewis finish on the podium? No's minus 188,
Yeah.
but they could. It could be Max, Lando, Lewis, right?
It could be Max. It could be Max. Well, they think it's gonna be. So they think it's gonna be Max Lando Lewis. You're
Yeah.
saying, like, my point is, like, Lewis can be on the podium in that minus 188 bet, but then anybody else can be on the podium. Like Lewis
Anybody
takes
that's
a
not.
spot.
Yeah. I don't know. We've seen so many podiums this year that have a Merc and a McLaren on it.
What that whole conversation just led me back to is that we don't know what's gonna happen. So you just need to. So one thing that we're most confident in is that Max is probably going to win because he has the best race pace. We have him to win.
I'm
We
confident in
think
Max wins the race.
we think that Mercedes is going to hold the top six spots, assuming nothing happens. We think
I'm
Oscar
confident
is
in
going
that.
to hold off. Like Lando's in two and Oscar's in 10th. We think like unless Lando comes out of the, it doesn't matter. You can't think the
Oscar
cars
goes
are going to come out of
four.
the race.
Oscar gets both Alpines and probably Checo.
I'm not worried about him. Like it's just all those two bats are just don't crash. Which whatever it is, what it is. Like what are you going to do if
Okay,
something
well,
happens, right?
and I get it.
Yeah,
We're coming fresh off a Merc hitting each other, but if there's
yeah.
two teams on this grid that we feel comfortable that have it's McLaren and Mercedes,
I agree,
right?
100%. Like I know I'm not. I agree with you. So that might just be it. Is those three bets, and then like I like the Max
Let's
leading
go
after
50
lap
bucks
five.
on Max to lead lap 5. Like maybe he does
Okay.
it fast and it's just a crazy flyer.
Okay. So let me start dialing this in. So the shortest odds are the points finish for McLaren.
McLaren double points.
So let me make sure I'm in race. Yeah. Here we go.
What I like about this too, Mike, two things. One, it's a mixed up grid. We don't really know exactly the pecking order, so we're gonna take wide bets, top tens and top sixes. I like that.
Great. Yeah.
Number
I think that's
two,
smart.
Max is out of position, and that's the crux of our show. We wait till after qualifying to find the guy out of position. So bang, we're gonna be on the world trip, the three-peat world champion, current world champion, to go win the race in the best race car on the grid
Yeah.
because he's out of position. That's what we look for.
Yep.
I like it. I like it.
This is lead after lap number Max
Yeah, you just
Verstappen
want driver. Yeah, lead
5
after lap number
plus 1200 is what you saw,
plus
right?
1200. And then look at the drop to 175 for lap 10. So
Yeah, I
Vegas
know.
is saying, hey, somewhere between 5 and 10 he takes this lead. We're saying no, let's make it quick.
Yeah, but
Max.
that means he has to do it all in like the first two laps, which is fine. Like he could do
Without
that.
DRS for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah, that's just racecraft instead of like
Yeah.
superior car performance. That's fine.
This is
Okay,
Sainz and Russell crash each other out, and Max gets to go in, and all of a sudden he's in third, and it's like, all right, Max, you got 4 laps, go get 2
we don't
spots.
we don't want George Russell crashing anybody out. Actually, fuck, George could do that because he could like climb back into the top six.
He
He's like a
100%
I
can.
know he's a battering ram. Like he could do our bidding and then get a new front wing and then do your thing where you just go the whole race and you're like, oh, somehow George finished in fifth. That makes no sense that he
Huh?
finished in fifth.
Didn't that
Yeah,
just
he's
happen in
yeah, literally.
Qatar?
Yeah, in guitar, yeah.
One of those two
Um,
Mercs
yeah.
stayed in the race, and he
So stupid.
he was top six, didn't he? He brought it to the points at least. Like, where did he finish? He had a good
Fourth.
finish.
Then
Yeah,
I think he
yeah,
finished in fourth.
yeah,
I think he finished in
yeah.
fourth. Yeah, it made no sense.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
last on lap 1. Crashed his teammate out. That's exactly why we're liking him.
Okay, minus 225, minus 188, minus 175.
Did Max go? Oh no! Oh yeah, because boosted. Right. I wrote 88.
Yeah. So
gotta make sure
before
I say
you,
boosted
we got to make
and
sure
not
that
post.
we got to make sure the show uploads properly here, so we can't fuck around.
Yeah.
Um, This is hard because normally I would be like, I don't want to dump more on the two
On the
car
two
bets,
car. I know what
but
you're gonna say there.
the win is the guy in sixth has to win, which is entirely possible. Like I think we can acknowledge and agree that he should win the race. Like we feel like he should win.
Safest here to me.
Is 350,
I think it's
300,
in
300.
order of the lines. McLaren top 10. We have the widest margin. Then the Merc in the top six, and then Max to win. Probably is the way I feel comfortable.
So is that a 400, 300, 250?
3, 250. 350, 350, 250. 4.
Is it 375, 325, 250?
Ooh, 75s and 25s? I'm just wondering if you want to bring the Max closer to the Mercs in dollar value because it's a one car.
Yeah, I do. You're right. So let's boost him. What if I go like 275, 325, 350? It's kind of interesting.
Okay.
275, 325, 350, and then the 50 flyer. Right? Because that's returning 432 on the max and 500 essentially on the Mercs, and then it's I kind of like that it brings McLaren and Merc in line. They're both $500 returns pretty well.
Okay. Give it to me again. 275 on Max.
Yeah, 275 on Max, 325 on Mercedes, and 350 on McLaren.
I missed it again. 275 on Max. What's on the
275
Merc?
275 on Max, a 325 on Merc,
325 on Merc.
and 350 on McLaren.
350 on the McLaren. I like it. What's the total return if we win everything?
$2,000 again.
Fucking right.
Buddy, we'll just do it again.
We'll
We'll do
just
it
fucking
again.
win another.
You don't
Yeah.
think we'll do it again? It's so
You don't think we will?
you get rid of the flyer and it's a 40% return, which is like that's like exactly in line with what we want, right?
That's
So
what we're looking for.
yeah, the 40% that we want. Okay. All right, buddy, I'm gonna dial it in because you're gonna lose your battery, but I think that this is
I am going to lose the battery. A little bit longer show. Thanks for tuning in, people. If you've made it this far, like and subscribe. It really, really helps us out. We're trying to grow the channel. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. That's F1000. We'll be back next week in Mexico. Boom.